This is Polygon Issuance number 75, previewing the NWA meeting. I'm Jeff Wilcox hosting this preview show, and as you can plainly see, this is very different from many of the other Polygons. This is audio only. As we have transitioned a little bit from doing our typical Google Hangouts, we still are going to do many of our Polygons on Google Hangouts still, but for some of the episodes we might just do these audio only shows, especially if we have issues like we've been having the last couple of weeks with guests and having to put up with Google Plus and Google Hangouts. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to do this as a beta test and to preview the NWA meeting that's coming up this coming weekend. If you're happening to listen to this, I am taping this on Thursday the 15th of October. The meeting promptly starts on Sunday the 18th, and I will be there. Henry, my typical co-host, who has not been on the last few months, is expected to be with me because I'm expecting to get him and take him there. But he will be there. He may not be on every show, but he'll be on most of them while we're down there. So when we're talking about the NWA meeting, first off, most people will be like, what's that? Well, of course, if you're listening to a lot of these podcasts, vodcasts, or whatnot, you know the NWA means the National Weather Association, which is one of two main weather groups in the country, the other being the American Meteorological Society, or the AMS. The NWA is based in Norman, Oklahoma, at the National Weather Center, whereas the AMS is based in Boston, on Beacon Street, I believe it is. Interestingly enough, I've actually been to both Boston and Norman. Not for weather-related events, though. But nevertheless, the meeting is going to take place Sunday through Thursday. We're expecting to do shows each night during the NWA meeting. Some may be audio, some may be through Google Plus, through our Hangouts, depending on internet. We'll have to wait and see on that. But as we move through the preview, we're going to preview what's going to be at the meeting, what we expect to take place there and whatnot, and possibly some upcoming stuff coming up after the NWA meeting, where I'll do that as well. But before I go into the NWA meeting and the previewing of it, we typically, as always, look at the weather that's been going on. Well, we haven't done a show in 3 weeks, so it's been a while. It's been cold, it's been hot, it's been warm, it's been cool, it's been windy, it's been not. In fact, right now, as I look outside my window, it is very windy outside as cold air is coming in from the northwest. Our first hard freeze is expected this weekend up here in Iowa, where temperatures are expected to drop into the 20s. So it's a good thing we're leaving. We're not going to want to stay here because it's going to be too cold. But we're going to be looking at the hard freeze. It's October. It's expected to be happening this time of the year. It's a little later than usual. Typically, most of the state has at least had a frost by this point. There's some parts of the state that have had a frost, but have not had a hard freeze. And this is pretty much going to be the end of the growing season for most of the state. Not all the state. I think far southern and far southwestern Iowa may just get by without a hard freeze. However, I think it's pretty much going to be a certain that most of the state is going to at least have a frost, and most of the northeastern quarter to third of the state is going to see a hard freeze. Outside of metro areas which have the urban heat island effect, which could keep the temperatures up enough that could keep the freeze away, but don't count on it. I'd bring the plants in if you have plants in. Anyway, talking about the NWA meeting. As we go into that, typically on Saturday, there's a few things that go on Saturday. The golf tournament that's taking place at I'm trying to think where it is. It's in Oklahoma City. No, Betsy Kling, who's a chief meteorologist at WKYC in Cleveland, is involved with that. And there's going to be a lot of people there. Of course, I'm not going to be at that get-together for the fact that I'll be driving to Oklahoma City that day, and I'm not going to get there until well past the golf tournament. It's going to be over, so. But that's where a lot of meteorologists, weather people will be there as well. Sundays when the meetings start, There's a student session for students, high school, college, mainly college, and anybody wanting to have a career in weather, whether it be on TV, at the Weather Service, in the private sector, etc., etc. And then there will be a session for broadcasters. Now, that could be radio broadcasters, TV broadcasters, or in our case, it could actually be internet broadcasters. As some of you know, we do run a weather website. As somebody is now interrupting me because now they're mowing my lawn outside. Can't get anything done here, can I? Anyway, so hopefully that's not going to be loud enough, but I have a feeling it's going to be. So bear with me and I'll stop and okay, they're gone for the time being. Anyway, it's a blooper. What do you expect? Okay. But the broadcasters, where they're going to discuss a lot of things that have gone on in the broadcast industry, etc., etc. And I should probably bring up the stuff that's going to take place while I'm doing this, since this is probably a good idea to be doing this at this point. So let me bring that up. Now, you're not going to see that because this is audio only, but I'm going to describe it. There's going to be a lot of description in this, so bear with me because there's going to be a lot that I'm going to have to describe with this. But anyway, Sunday, as I mentioned, is the broadcaster and student session. Kind of very interesting as to what will take place there. Now, with this session, they have the student workshop and the broadcast meteorology workshop. They also have the research operations nexus, which is also taking place that day as well. Whereas with the broadcast workshop, we'll talk about a lot of things with a lot of Weather Service people. Some broadcast meteorologists will be there as well. There will be talk about the GOES-R, which is a satellite that's going to be launched sometime, I think, later this year or next year. I can't remember which one it is. And then they're going to have other discussions about what's gone on. Severe Weather Workshop is going to be done by Greg Carbon, who's the pretty much the head honcho at the Storm Prediction Center. So, there's about a lot of that. The student workshop is going to have a lot of stuff about building careers, being in the broadcast, private sector, being on the Weather Service, possibly going to some place like graduate school if you wanted to be like get a doctorate in meteorology, if you wanted to start going into teaching and whatnot. You can do that as well if you wanted to do that. With the Research Operations Nexus, it's kind of just more or less going into the research aspect of meteorology, and there's a lot of things we do not know still about meteorology, so there's a lot to go on with this at this point. Now, Monday, lots of sessions. These are known as the general sessions, talking about social science, operations type stuff. Typical, a lot of events are going to be discussed. Some that have taken place as recently as a few weeks ago. In fact, the South Carolina floods that took place a week or so ago is going to be discussed. I don't think it's on Monday, though. I believe it's later in the week, but it is going to be discussed. They're going to talk about what's going to happen since we've had dual pole radar. What's going to be the next thing with it? Is it going to be phased array radar? And some of you may not know what phased array radar is, and I'm not going to go into it because I know some of it, but not all of it, and I don't want to go into it at this point. But it took so long for us to get dual pole when it's the next radar, because the radars we have now, the WSR-88Ds, they've been around a while. They're expected to last maybe another 20-25 years. Are we heading for a brand new network of radars in the future, or are we just going to keep upgrading the 88Ds? We'll see what happens with that. And then we have some more topics on severe weather later on Monday afternoon, especially talking about tornadoes and whatnot. So a lot of severe weather will be discussed and whatnot. And then there's going to be a lot of social science stuff taking place, and I could go into it, but if I started describing every single thing, I'll be here for like 2 hours doing this, and with this being audio, I don't think I want to describe it for 2 hours. Now, then there's the icebreaker. That's on Monday. That's at the Weather Center in Norman. which also will include the walking tour of the NWA headquarters, which is in the Weather Center, and the OU Research Campus, which is also down there in the south side of Norman. For those that have not been there, and silly me, when I went to Norman, I looked for the Weather Center and promptly got lost in Norman, and I found pretty much everything else in Norman except the Weather Center. The Weather Center is, the National Weather Center is south of the Oklahoma football stadium, quite a distance, maybe about a mile or so. It's fairly close to the basketball arena, if I remember right. But that's where the icebreaker is. That's pretty much where all the weather people get together and talk and whatnot, kind of known as breaking the ice and whatnot. But Tuesday, lots of stuff on satellites and droughts and fires, and unfortunately we've had a lot of that this year with the major drought going on in the West, a lot of wildfires taking place. In fact, today I saw on Twitter numerous wildfires and grass fires taking place in the South because there's a lot of red flag warnings. In fact, I noticed today I saw a red flag warning in western Iowa because it's been very dry. We have had no rain here for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So even though it's October and the farmers want to go out and harvest, you take a combine and just the tiniest little spark, and here starts a field fire, one of which I witnessed, not witnessed the fire starting, but I saw a field fire when I was just outside the Quad Cities earlier this week, and it was a fairly big fire. You could see that for at least 10 to 15 miles away from the actual fire. But speaking about Tuesday, there's this educating using videos, the satellites, so more talk probably about GOES-R at this point with whatnot, and in fact that's one of the things, talking about the one that Japan put up, the Himawari 8, which is a very good satellite. If any of you have ever looked at some of the images from the Himawari, if I'm saying that right, if I'm saying it wrong I apologize, those are nice crisp pictures of satellites. And they talk about GOES-R and all the stuff there, and a lot of stuff with droughts and whatnot, talking about California especially, and fires in the southern plains, especially where I saw a few of those today around Texas and whatnot. And then there's some talks on lightning especially. Of course, lightning is the #1 killer, or no, flooding is the #1 killer. Lightning and flooding is bad, so, and whatnot. But there's a lot of that stuff here on Tuesday afternoon about that. And then, of course, then we go into Wednesday, more discussion. And I can go on to Wednesday. There's going to be the Worn On thing from NOAA, which Lou Wicker is going to do. And Lou Wicker has been around down in Norman for quite a while now. I remember seeing him and a bunch of them back from the late 90s. So they've been there and back and whatnot. And some other stuff taking place about heavy rain events and whatnot. Something that's very interesting, and talking about episodes of heavy rain, flooding, heavy rain in hindsight. For example, the South Carolina event, which is not going to be discussed during this feature. Then Wednesday, of course, is the luncheon, which takes place at noon. And that's where they're going to have the keynote from Steve Harned, who is the original, or was a past president of the NWA. He's been an NWA member all 40 years, because I might mention NWA is 40 years old this year. So, about that. And then there's another session on radar and winter weather. Unfortunately, it's a concurrent session. A lot of these are concurrent. Radar, talking about radars, and rapid scan phased array radar is going to be discussed. Dual pole is going to be discussed. Some estimating rainfall from the 88D from now and into the future. And then talking about with the winter weather, talking about winter storms and whatnot, and convection snows, meaning thunder snows and whatnot. And also talking about ice storms as well. So that'll be an interesting thing. And then, of course, Wednesday has the evening session, which is new and never happened that I've know of in any other previous NWA meetings. That's where they're going to do the Craig Carbon does his top 10, which is actually not quite done because the 10th one is always left out because this is October and we still got the rest of this year to go. So that's what's going to be spoken about, what Greg's going to do there. And then Pat Spoden has, if the tri-state tornado occurred today, what would happen? Now, for those that may not know, the tri-state tornado occurred in 1925 in March. And I just did something that I don't think I should do. Oh, okay. So the tri-state tornado started in southeast Missouri, went through southern Illinois, and ended in southwest Indiana. There's been talk that it may have not been on the ground the whole time. It may have been a family of tornadoes, but nevertheless, it was a bad storm. It killed 700 people, something like that. Many of which were children, because a lot of schools got hit. What would happen today? Well, of course, it would be warned on a lot better. There'd be radar and whatnot. But this was 1925. There was no such thing. There was no satellites, and the word tornado was not mentioned in advisories or forecasts from the Weather Bureau, which was the predecessor of the Weather Service at the time. Then Tim Troutman has an interesting thing of how tornadoes and severe weather affected the North and the South during the Civil War. That's going to be interesting. And then there's going to be a talk on the 100 inches of snow that hit in Italy. I believe it was last winter or the winter before, I can't remember. And then there's going to be a talk about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which occurred 40 years ago. That occurred in 1975. That was in Lake Superior. And it fell during a fairly nasty storm. A fairly strong low pressure center went across Lake Superior where about the ship was, and it sank. And then I finally have gotten to the point about the flood in South Carolina. Henry Rothenberg, who I believe is in Columbia, South Carolina, it's on TV, he's a TV Met in South Carolina, is going to discuss that. And the flooding, if any people have seen the flooding pictures and video from there, it's similar to what happened here in 2008 during the Iowa flood. In fact, it's probably worse because South Carolina, that water can't just flow away and it's gone. It's taking some time because South Carolina is right next to the Atlantic, so it's going to take a while to pretty much recede, and there's still some areas that are quite inundated right now as we move into that. Now when we talk about Thursday, the last day, we have rainfall events, 40 years of severe weather forecasting, and all you'd have to do is look at stuff from the 1970s and look at today, and there's quite a difference. Talking about 25 years of training and whatnot. Projects on the Tennessee Valley. That's from Tim Troutman. He's at the Weather Service in Huntsville. And it seems like they've had quite a few. It seems like the South has had lots of tornadoes. It seems like they'll last about 5 to 10 years and whatnot. And then this is interesting, and I discussed this. I did a post about this on the Iowa Weather Network website a couple of years ago. It was about the Armistice Day storm in 1940. This occurred on Veterans Day, then known as Armistice Day, November 11th, 1940. It's a retrospective look at the Armistice Day storm using numerical modeling and to simulate conditions on the Great Lakes during the storm. Now that storm, was just in the Great Lakes in the Midwest. There was a lot of snow in Iowa, the Midwest, and whatnot. Blizzard conditions, and it was quick moving. From what I can remember, that it was very fast, and it came. You could say, and I'm going to use this, and this is pretty much bad for me. It came without warning, unquote. So that'll be an interesting topic. So some of this we'll describe during these shows and whatnot. What we'll do when we'll discuss these in somewhat more detail when we get down there and whatnot. And then there's some stuff on social science and aviation, for example, like on icing on plane wings and what the FAA does with air traffic control and decision support from the Weather Service and whatnot. And that would be interesting to a certain extent. And then social science, which is going to be interesting as well, with how they're going to be applying stuff to the how we're going to move forward with for example, we've already had the stuff with how warnings are slightly different now with the catastrophic and kind of enhancing the wording to make it for people to actually get the idea that it's safe, that it's a good idea to be going to a basement and whatnot if a tornado is coming, no matter if it's on the ground or not. If it's bad, it's coming, and you need to. They're trying to get people to see words that will get their attention to make them go somewhere and whatnot, and they're going to use this for other products as well in the future. Now, the afternoon sessions, we have stuff about the oceans, tropical weather, and whatnot. Not a lot of tropical weather. I'm slightly surprised, and I think it's because of the fact there hasn't been any tropical systems that have hit the United States of late. Now, there was all that stuff about Joaquin a couple of weeks ago, which the South Carolina flood event was partial to that, mainly because it was partially from Joaquin and partially from a system that was kind of stranded because it wasn't moving, from an upper level feature that couldn't move because Joaquin was in the way, so it couldn't go, and there was a high pressure to the north that it couldn't move it either. So a lot of bad things occurred with that and whatnot. So, and then when we look at the late afternoon, the last things, which I cannot get to work, and I don't know why. Here we go. We have stuff about flash flood forecasting and whatnot, and preliminary damage tools and that. And then the meeting is done, and that'll be the end of the meeting and whatnot. Now, there's other stuff that'll be taking place. There's posters, refreshments, there's all these people that'll be there, people that are doing exhibits, these posters and whatnot, and I could go into that too since we have some time. I don't want to make this like a horribly long video or audio. I keep thinking this is a video, but it's going to be a video. It's going to be on here on YouTube. So I will go through those. I'm not going to go through every one, but I'm just going to kind of describe them to a certain extent. So let me look at the posters. There's a couple, as I look through this, economic loss for natural disasters. And there's some satellite stuff. QLCS tornado environments. I'm going to be interested in that. That'd be interesting. Because we have a lot of QLCS tornadoes in Iowa, it seems like lately. Some stuff about Joplin, which I'm surprised that there were. I mean, that's a tornado that's going to be researched for years. Joplin and any other of the stuff. So let's see, droughts, tornado genesis. That'll be interesting. In fact, there's going to be a poster on the tornado genesis of the Moore, Oklahoma tornado. Now, first thing you're thinking of is which one? Moore, Oklahoma is like the tornado central capital of the United States lately. This is of the tornado genesis of the Moore, Oklahoma tornado from this year. And first thing you're thinking of is, they had a tornado this year? Of course they did. It was the same day as the tornado that hit west of Tulsa. Storm came out. It did this small little tornado. Lots of power flashes. It's on YouTube. Just look up Moore, Oklahoma tornado 2015. You'll find it. You'll know what you're seeing. It was not this big, huge wedge tornado. It was an EF1, but it was not warned on very well. There was a severe thunderstorm warning, but there was a lot of winds, straight line winds in it, and so there's going to be a poster on how that tornado developed, because it's interesting because that tornado formed on the front side of the storm. So we'll talk about. There's going to be stuff on that. Social media stuff is going to be thing. Some severe weather for talking about filling radars. You've heard me talk about this on several shows where we talk about places where they need better radar coverage. Well, there's a poster about this. I'm talking about a severe weather event that occurred in last year in 2014 in Colorado. There's some tornado. Oh, wait a minute. This one has to be the perfect thing for this show. What if tornado warning polygons could translate with the hazard? Oh yes, they have to use the title of the show to discuss that. Isn't that interesting? So it's a collection of stuff. It's wide ranging, and that's on Monday. That's what I see that as. Now, if I move to the Tuesday stuff, there's a review on a tornado that occurred in Georgia this year. And I'm wondering why all of a sudden my computer decided to be... Okay, never mind. Doing social media with critical weather information on campuses, which I find somewhat interesting. Some stuff about radar, flash flood forecasting, which sounds a lot like something that was also in there. Weather support for airports, which is also in the aviation thing, but this is separate. Significant weather event that occurred in New York and Pennsylvania back last year. That could be interesting as well. I'm finding interesting stuff going through this. Hurricane stuff. Some more. Now this is interesting. Here's a poster that's going to describe a tornado that occurred during the April 27th event, and it's in Tennessee. That'll be interesting. I'm going to look at that one. Because as you know, watching these shows or listening to these shows over the years, that we've had a lot of people on the show talking about April 27th. From Matt Labhon to James Spann to Jason Simpson and Mike Wilhelm, who was on that show. We've had a lot of talk about that day over that time frame. So it'll be interesting if there's to talk about just one event and whatnot. Lightning probabilities of cloud to ground, that'd be interesting. And I'm going through these, so I don't have to list every single one, because if I did that, I'd be here all afternoon. Because I'm taping this in the afternoon, by the way. But there's one on residential loss costs in relation to the 2013 Moore EF5. That's interesting. And then there's a poster on a tornado that occurred outside of Boston last year, which is interesting because Boston, especially Massachusetts in general, does not get tornadoes that many times a year, if maybe a handful at most during a year, especially in Boston. Western Massachusetts, it's a little bit better than in Eastern Massachusetts. However, we continue. And then here, Wednesday's posters that I see here, some more lightning stuff, a retrospective and overview from the Storm Prediction Center. I'm kind of sad that Roger Edwards didn't get an oral on that, because that would have been more interesting to see that as an oral presentation. Hazardous weather decision support for events in the 8 to 14 day time frame. That's from Alan Gerard, who's at the Weather Service in Jackson, Mississippi. So that will be interesting to look at that. And then communicating forecast uncertainty from the Weather Service in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. That's known as Kansas City. From 2015 winter and convective seasons. I'd love to hear about that. That would be interesting. Some other stuff that I see here. I'm looking through these because there's quite a few good ones. Some other stuff related to Weather Service methods. what some weather service offices do for certain events. That's one talking about a tornado in a place that's a fairly strong tornado in Montana. If I'm mentioning yours, then you should be happy, because these are popping out at me. So that's what I see here on these. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that my brain is probably going to be chock filled with stuff that I fear is going to probably just blow my mind or whatnot. So I've gone just over 30 minutes at this point. But so we're going to have shows at least every night. We're going to try to. I'm going to force myself to try to do at least a 30 to 40 minute show each night, at least Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thursday is going to be a bit questionable because we'll be actually driving back. We're probably not going to be at every session on Thursday. We might miss the last session, which starts at mid-afternoon, because we're going to be driving. Unfortunately, we're driving to Joplin, where we're spending the night Thursday night. But we will do a roundup the following Friday. That'll be the 23rd, where we're going to do a full roundup of everything, and then look forward to what we're going to have after that. Now, speaking of after that, I believe October 30th, which is the Friday after the review of everything that we've learned, or what we saw, we're going to be doing a winter preview show. This is for the Midwest mainly. And right now, as of this moment, and things can change, so bear with me, things could change at a moment's notice. Right now, Chuck Collins, who was on only about a month or so ago, is expected to be back on, along with Tom Coombs, who's from South Bend, Indiana. Eric Wilhelm from WFMJ in Youngstown is expected to be with us again. And I think those are the only three that I know of right now, and I have to look to make sure that's the only three I have right now, where we're going to be discussing the winter weather in the Midwest, what we can expect for winter this year. And in fact, the winter weather, the thing came out today, so that I noticed, so we'll probably discuss that and what we think and what they think might happen. And then I'm trying to do another winter preview series for the South the week after that. I'm still working on that. That would be on October the... No, wait a minute. Now I'm trying to think. No, scrap that. I said something stupid. The winter preview, the Midwest one, is on October 30th. Sorry, I was screwed up. This is what I get for doing this. Okay, so, and then the one on the South that I'm trying to get together would be on November 6th. We'll see if I can get that together. Now, speaking of November 13th, I have a guest lined up that day. I am not at liberty to say who it is, but you will know who it will be probably by at least after NWA has finished. So, and we may have more guests as we go further into November, as we restart the show after our hiatus. So, thanks for listening to this. This is kind of a bit odd since it's only audio. But you can get a hold of me, as always, Twitter at IOWX, IOWAWX on Twitter. You can get me on email, iowawx@gmail.com. Of course, there's our website that I am doing some forecasting on. Of course, I won't be doing it during NWA. That's the Iowa Weather Network, iawx.net. I'll get it right sooner or later. And of course, if you have any guest suggestions or you want to comment on anything, you can send me the email, send me a Twitter message. You want to complain, if you want to rant and whatnot, I'll be more than willing to read off your rant, because I've gotten myself into a bit of trouble with some of mine. So anyway, if you have any of that, suggestions, comments, and whatnot, you can send them to me on Twitter and email and whatnot. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you when we're down in Oklahoma City on Sunday.